Welcome to springlib.
Okay, so here we're given a product, but instead of the two matrices being multiplied together, we're given sort of a matrice as a variable. Okay, so we have our one matrix, our variable matrix, and then the product matrix. And the idea is to then find what A is. Okay, well, so if we let matrix A, if we think of it instead of just this variable, we can sort of put variables into the matrix, right? And so one thing we know is since the product is a 3x3 matrix, A must also be a 3x3 matrix. So I'll squeeze this in. If we put, say, like A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, H, I instead of A, so we're going to let that equal A, then we can actually multiply these out and get a system of equations, right? So we can multiply row by column to equal that and repeat and repeat and repeat. And you'll get sort of three systems of equations. So you'd get A plus, so for example, with this first one, you get A plus 3D plus 2G equals 7. Okay, and then if we wanted to then take like this row in the same column, to get this value here, we get 2A plus D plus G is equal to 1. And then similarly, we would also get, if we do the next row but same column, 4A plus 3G equals -1, right? And then you can repeat that process with the other columns to get three different systems of equations. And then we solve those, and that'll give us A. Okay, so if we want to solve this first one, all right, so we'll start with the A plus 3D plus 2G is equal to 7. 2A plus D plus G is equal to 1. And 4A plus 3G is equal to -1. And then we can take this third equation, and that'll tell us that A is equal to -1/4 minus 3/4 G. And we can put that into our second equation and solve it. And so that'll give us that 2 times what we found for A of -1/4 minus 3/4 G plus D plus G equals 1. We solve that for D, and we'll get 3/2 plus 1/2 G, right? And then we'll put that into our first equation along with both of these pieces, right? So we have an A and a D, both in terms of G. So we'll get an equation just in G. Right, so that's going to look like -1/4 minus 3/4 G plus 3 times what we found for D. So that's going to be 3/2 plus 1/2 G plus 2G is equal to 7. And when you go through and solve for G, you'll end up getting that G is equal to 1. Okay, so now that we know that G is equal to 1, we can put that here in D and here in A to find out that that means that A is then equal to -1 and that D is then equal to 2. Okay, so if we go back to our A matrix here, where we had A is equal to this A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, well, then we've figured out that A is equal to -1, D was equal to 2, and G was equal to 1, right? So we have one column. So then we can repeat this process, right? So if we get our next system of equations, then that's going to look like B plus 3E plus 2H is equal to 1, 2B plus E plus H is equal to 0, and 4B plus 3H is equal to -3. All right, by a similar process, we'll start with this first equation here and solve it to get that B is equal to -3/4 H minus 3/4. And then we'll move on to our second equation. Okay, putting what we found for B into it. So we would get 2 times this -3/4 H minus 3/4 plus E plus H, which will eventually give us, when we solve that, for E is equal to 1/2 H plus 3/4. Okay, then we can put all that into this first equation here. So we'll put what we found for B in for B, what we found for E in for E, and get an equation just in terms of H. Okay, and we'll solve that to get that H is equal to -1. Once we've done that, we can put H back into these values to get that B is equal to 0 and E is equal to 1. Right, so we can go back here, and so we see that B is equal to 0, E was equal to 1, and H to -1. Then we just have one last system to solve, and this one's actually kind of nice. You can go ahead and use sort of solving by inspection, I think. But so we get C plus 3F plus 2I is equal to 3, 2C plus F plus I is equal to 3, and then 4C plus 3I is equal to 7. But we can see pretty right off the bat, 4 plus 3 is equal to 7. So C and I are going to be equal to 1. And if we put that into these other two equations here, we'll get that. We end up with 3 plus 3F is equal to 3. And then we get that 3 plus F is equal to 3. Well, that can really only happen if F is equal to 0, right? So we get then both C and I were 1 and F is 0. And so that's how we find our matrix A.